Okay, so picture this. You're a cashier, and someone's total comes to $6.66.
Oh, yeah, I can see where this is going.
Right. Like, instantly, you just feel this weird, almost like a superstitious chill, you know?
For sure. And especially, if you're down south, like a lot of folks, they'll do anything to avoid that number.
Oh, yeah. Add a pack of gum, whatever it takes.
Totally. Anything to change that total, right?
It's wild how, like, these superstitions, they just have this grip on us.
They really do. It's fascinating.
So that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Superstitions, baby.
All around the world.
Global edition.
And we've got, like, articles, research, even, I think, a couple of first-hand accounts.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
From, like, those everyday little rituals
Mm-hmm.
to, like, more out-there beliefs.
I love it. A good mix.
Yeah. So we're going to, like, journey across continents.
Literally.
Unpack these beliefs, where they come from, how they've changed, or, like, stayed the same, which is crazy.
Right. Somewhere like ancient.
And, of course, like, how they still affect us today, in modern culture.
It's going to be a good one.
So buckle up. Let's kick things off in Asia, where, get this, superstitions can even affect, like, buildings.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Like in China, the number 4, like, big no-no.
Ah,
Wow.
yeah, I've heard about that. Isn't it because it sounds like the word for death?
Exactly. Mandarin, right?
Yeah, Mandarin. It's like their biggest fear, I think.
And it's not just, like, say it out loud, right? Some buildings, they actually, like, skip the 4th floor altogether.
No way. That's wild.
I know, right? Imagine that. Your apartment building jumps from 3 to 5.
That would mess with my head for sure.
Oh, yeah. And gifts. Never in sets of 4.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Super bad luck, huh?
Big time. It's called tetraphobia.
Tetraphobia.
It's, like, pretty common in East and Southeast Asia, I think.
Wow, that's a superstition with some real-world impact, huh?
Totally. But hey, at least they have 8, right?
Oh, yeah, 8's their lucky number, isn't it?
Like wealth, prosperity, the whole 9 yards.
Lucky phone numbers, wedding
Yeah.
dates, I bet even stock prices.
Oh, I'm sure. Okay, now I feel like I need a cheat sheet of lucky numbers for every country.
Right. Me too.
Yeah,
Superstitions for dummies, huh?
totally. So Japan, number 9, bad news.
Oh, yeah, something about it sounding like suffering.
Yeah, I think so. It's crazy how, like, the way words sound can shape these beliefs.
Totally. Like, languages have power, right?
For sure. Okay, now tell me about that thing in Japan with the thumbs at cemeteries.
Oh, right, that one. So you're supposed to, like, hide your thumbs.
Tuck them in.
Yeah. Because, like, sometimes they're called, like, parent fingers.
Really?
Yeah. And the idea is, like, by hiding them, you're protecting your parents from death, like, symbolically shielding them.
It's so interesting how, like, gestures and rituals can have some deep meanings.
It's really powerful, right? Like, trying to control something, as big as death.
Totally. Okay, before we leave Asia, got to talk about Russia and the yellow flowers.
Oh, right. Sunflowers, for example.
Yeah. Like, who doesn't love a sunflower?
Apparently Russians, it's like a huge no-no there.
No kidding. Why is that?
Like bad news, infidelity, separation, even death, all associated with yellow flowers.
Wow, so definitely not a first date bouquet.
Definitely not. And it's kind of a mix of things, I think. Like, historically, yellow was the color of mourning sometimes.
Oh, interesting.
And then, like, yellow can also symbolize, things fading, decaying.
That makes sense, actually. It's crazy how one color can mean such different things in different places.
Right. Culture is key when it comes to these superstitions, for sure.
Big time. Okay, let's hop over to Europe now. They've got tons of interesting beliefs, too.
Oh, yeah, Europe's a goldmine for this stuff. We could spend hours just on that continent.
Oh, for sure. But let's start with Italy. I was reading about that tradition of writing love letters to Juliet Capulet in Verona.
Oh, yeah, like straight up writing to Juliet.
Yeah. It's like thousands of people do it from all over.
Wow, talk about a lasting impact. I guess everyone wants a piece of that Romeo and Juliet magic.
Right. And some people even touch the statue of Juliet's right breast.
They do.
For luck and love.
Wow. Okay. I wonder, do you think they actually believe they're, like, communicating with her spirit? Or is it more about the ritual itself?
It's a good question. Maybe it's both,
Yeah.
Like putting those hopes out there into the universe.
Yeah, maybe it's like a way of connecting with that idea of enduring love, hoping some of it rubs off.
That makes sense. Okay, so from love to, well, let's be real, who doesn't want a little extra luck and prosperity?
Right. Sign me up.
Tell us about that New Year's Eve thing in Spain.
Ah, the grapes.
Yeah, the grapes. 12 of them.
So at midnight, you got to eat 12 grapes, one for each month of the year.
That sounds like a challenge.
Oh, it is. It's a race against the clock. And messy, I bet.
I can imagine. but it sounds fun.
Oh, it's a blast. And it's like this whole tradition that brings people together, to start the new year with good vibes.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, now, some European superstitions have gone, like, global. Breaking a mirror,
Mm.
7 years bad luck.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
I wonder where that one came from.
Ancient Rome, I think. They believed mirrors reflected your soul.
So, like, breaking it was bad for your soul.
Yeah. Like fracturing part of yourself. And the 7 years, maybe it's connected to like that Roman idea of the body renewing every 7 years.
It's crazy how these old beliefs still kind of stick with us.
They really do. Speaking of sticking around, what about the itchy palm thing?
Oh, yeah. Right palm, money's coming. Left palm, you're going to lose money.
You're right.
Right.
That one's everywhere, isn't it?
It is. Do you think it has to do with, like, the right hand being for receiving and the left for giving?
Could be. I mean, a lot of these beliefs are tied to that whole good and bad fortune duality, right?
For sure. And it's funny how that one is super big in the Caribbean and South America.
You're right. Maybe it has something to do with trade, exchanging goods, you know?
Oh, interesting. Okay, speaking of places with, like, a ton of superstitions, we got to talk about the southern U.S.
Oh, yeah. The South is like superstition central.
It seems like they have a belief for everything.
It's such a cool mix, too. Native American, European, African traditions all blending together.
And they're really into those death omens, huh?
Big time.
Yeah.
Like if an empty rocking chair starts moving.
Spooky.
Right. Or a screech owl, or 3 knocks on the window, or a bird flying into the house.
Or even just a bird hitting a window, right?
Yeah. All bad signs. It makes you wonder, like, did those beliefs help people cope with death back in the day?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like when death was much more common, you know?
Yeah. Like a way to make sense of it all.
For sure. And of course, the South is big on food superstitions, too.
Oh, yeah. Hoppin' John and greens for New Year's.
Exactly. Black-eyed peas for luck, greens for wealth, pork for progress.
But don't you dare do laundry on New Year's Day.
Oh, no. Washes away all that good luck.
Exactly. It's like every action has a meaning in the South, you know?
Totally. And what about those porch ceilings painted that light blue color?
Paint blue. To keep the evil spirits away.
Ah, I love that color. But it's wild to think it has this whole deeper meaning.
Right. It's from, like, the enslaved people from West Africa. They brought that belief over.
Oh, wow.
Blue was connected to water and the sky, like places evil spirits couldn't reach.
It's so cool how traditions can, like, endure and change at the same time.
It's like this beautiful blend, right? Keeping the core idea, but adapting to a new place.
I love that. Okay, last stop before we move on. Mexico and their tortilla superstition.
Oh, right. Pocky tortillas.
Yeah. So if your tortilla puffs up while you're cooking it,
Within belts.
apparently, and if it's a flour tortilla, that means your future mother-in-law already loves you.
Score.
I wonder if it's like the tortilla symbolizes a full life, happy and abundant.
Could be. Food and superstitions go hand in hand, right? Like nourishment,
Yes.
fertility, all that.
Totally. Okay, we've covered some serious ground here. China, Japan, Russia, Italy, Spain, the South, Mexico.
I know, right? Superstitions galore.
And it's amazing how different they all are,
They are, but it's like there are these common threads, too.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Like wanting to control what we can't control, finding meaning in everyday stuff, the power of symbols.
Right. It makes you realize that even when these beliefs seem kind of irrational, they actually tell us a lot about, like, human nature.
Totally. And how we try to make sense of the world.
Exactly. It's all about understanding, even if we don't personally believe it,
Well said. Okay, before we get too deep into the psychology of it all, let's talk about how some of these beliefs have, like, evolved
Yeah.
over time. Because it's not like they just stayed frozen, right?
Oh, no, not at all. That's where things get really interesting. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, how many of these superstitions have been around for, like, centuries.
Oh, totally. It makes sense, though, right? The world was a way more mysterious place back then.
For sure. No science to explain things like, diseases or natural disasters.
Or even just plain old bad luck, right?
Yeah. Exactly. People were scared of what they didn't understand.
So they came up with these beliefs to try to, like, control things or at least predict what might happen.
Exactly. It was all about trying to make sense of the chaos,
So did these ancient beliefs just stay exactly the same all this time?
Not exactly. Superstitions are actually pretty adaptable.
Really?
Yeah. They've changed over time, mixed with new ideas, as cultures interact and stuff.
Okay, so give us an example of, like, a superstition that's evolved.
Okay, so in Turkey, they say chewing gum turns into dead flesh at night.
Whoa, that's intense. It's just gum, right?
I know, right? But it kind of reflects their deeper beliefs about, like, the nighttime and death.
So chewing gum after dark is like super taboo.
Pretty much. Maybe it comes from those old ideas about spirits being more active at night and like your soul being vulnerable.
Oh, interesting. So the basic idea of death and nighttime is still there, but the thing they focus on changes.
Exactly. It happens all the time. Think about the theater saying, break a leg.
Oh, yeah. That one's always confused me. Like, why wish someone bad luck?
Right. One theory is that it's about like tricking those jealous spirits, the ones who don't want you to succeed.
So by saying break a leg, you're like throwing them off the scent.
Yeah, like a reverse psychology thing for superstitions.
Clever. And some superstitions even started for like practical reasons, like opening an umbrella indoors.
Oh, yeah, that one. I always heard that was bad luck, but never knew why.
Right. Is it really bad luck?
Well, think about it. Way back when, umbrellas were like huge and clunky with those sharp metal bits.
Oh, yeah.
So opening one inside could actually be dangerous.
Oh, I see. So maybe it started as a safety rule.
Exactly. And then over time, the practical reason kind of faded away, but the belief itself stuck around.
That's so interesting. It looked like a mix of like worries, practical stuff, and trying to make sense of things we can't explain.
Totally. Speaking of worries, let's dive into some of those controversial superstitions that still have a big impact today.
Like black cats. Poor things, they can't seem to catch a break.
I know, right? Revered in ancient Egypt, demonized in Europe, linked to witches.
It's wild how their images change over time.
It really shows you how a symbol's meaning can totally shift depending on the culture and the time period.
Totally. So in ancient Egypt, cats were like worshipped,
Right.
associated with protection and good fortune.
Yeah, they were like mini gods. But then in medieval Europe, they became all about witchcraft and evil.
Like a bad game of telephone, where the message gets messed up along the way.
Exactly. And you can see how like religious beliefs and even political stuff can influence how we see these symbols.
For sure. Okay, and what about Friday the 13th? Is it really the unluckiest day?
Well, it definitely has that reputation. The number 13 has been considered unlucky for a long time, maybe because of that whole Last Supper thing.
Oh yeah, Judas being the 13th guest at the table.
Right. And then you add in Friday, the day Jesus was crucified, and it's like double whammy of bad vibes.
So it's all about the religious connection.
Partly, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also the cultural side of it. Like, are there actually more bad things that happen on Friday the 13th? Studies are kind of mixed on that.
So maybe it's more about how we think about the day, rather than what actually happens.
Exactly. But our beliefs can affect our actions, right? People might be more careful on Friday the 13th or avoid doing certain things altogether.
It's like the superstition becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. If you're convinced something bad will happen, you might unconsciously make it happen.
That's crazy. Okay, speaking of powerful beliefs, we got to talk about the evil eye.
Oh, yeah. That one's huge. Mediterranean, Middle East, Latin America, it's everywhere.
It's like this universal fear of envy, right?
Exactly. The idea that someone can, like, look at you the wrong way and cause you harm, like bad luck or even sickness.
It's like an invisible curse.
Kinda. And cultures that believe in the evil eye have all sorts of ways to protect themselves.
Like those blue eye amulets that Nazar.
Yeah, exactly. They're supposed to deflect the bad energy, and then they're spitting 3 times, wearing certain colors, even special prayers.
It's amazing how this one belief has inspired so many different traditions around the world.
It really is. Shows you how deeply these fears run and how much people want to feel safe and protected.
Okay, so we've talked about the ancient roots of superstitions, how they evolve, and how they can be both fascinating and kind of creepy.
Totally. A good mix.
But I think it's important to remember that for many people, these beliefs are a source of comfort.
Oh, absolutely. They're often tied to cultural identity, family traditions, stuff that's really important.
So just dismissing them as silly would be like missing the point entirely.
Exactly. These beliefs help people understand the world, deal with uncertainty, and feel connected to something bigger than themselves.
It's about respecting those different ways of seeing things, even if we don't personally believe them.
Well said. It's about being open-minded and appreciating the diversity of human experience.
But before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I want to explore this idea of respecting cultural beliefs a little deeper because I think it's super relevant today.
Totally agree. It's more important than ever in our increasingly interconnected world.
Okay, so we've like traveled the world, right?
Yeah.
From lucky numbers to charms, death omens, to all those good luck rituals.
Yeah. It's amazing how many different ways there are to look at luck and, the whole idea of fate.
Totally. But as we've talked about, sometimes those beliefs, like especially with superstitions, they can get like myth understood.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Some people might even, like, make fun of them.
And that's where I think respecting other cultures really comes in.
Big time. Because even if a superstition seems irrational to us, it might be super meaningful to someone else, right?
Totally. Like that cashier we talked about, the
Yeah.
one freaked out by $6.66.
Oh, right.
For them, it wasn't just a number. It was this whole cultural and religious thing.
Exactly. And if we, like, try to understand where those beliefs come from, we can be more respectful, even if we don't believe the same thing.
It's about recognizing that everyone sees the world a little differently, and that's okay.
For sure. It's about, like, embracing that diversity of human experience, you know?
I love that. And beyond just being respectful, I think exploring superstitions can make us think about our own beliefs too.
Oh, yeah. Like, we all have those little things we do, even if we don't want to admit it.
Totally. Knock on wood, don't walk under ladders.
Exactly. Or maybe you have a lucky shirt you wear for big events, or you always eat the same thing before a test.
Oh, totally. And when we really examine those beliefs, even the ones that seem kind of silly, it can help us understand ourselves better, you know?
Right. Like, where did those beliefs come from? How have they shaped the way we see the world?
It's like looking in a mirror at our own minds, seeing all those influences that have shaped us.
I love that analogy. It's so true. We're all part of this, like, web of beliefs and traditions, whether we realize it or not.
Okay, so before we wrap up our deep dive into superstitions, I got to ask you this. We've talked about them being irrational, but could there be like a psychological benefit to believing in these things?
That's a great question. And it's something researchers are actually looking into. Yeah, like think about those athletes with their rituals and lucky charms.
Right.
Even if there's no, like, actual magic involved, does believing in it help them perform better?
Like a placebo effect for luck.
Exactly. It could be that believing in something, even if it's not real, can boost your confidence, reduce anxiety, help you focus.
And all that could lead to better performance, right?
Totally. So maybe that's why these superstitions have stuck around for so long.
They might actually be serving a purpose, even if we don't fully understand it.
Right. It's a reminder that the human mind is complex, and we're always looking for ways to feel safe and in control, especially when faced with the unknown.
Well said. Okay, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of superstitions. It's been a wild ride.
I know, right? So many fascinating beliefs out there.
And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed the journey as much as we have. May your paths be filled with good fortune and maybe a little bit of healthy skepticism too.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for listening, everyone.